What we're going to focus on for this conversation is, is your tech an asset or is your tech a liability, right? So, old school Slido here, show of hands, right? So, show of hands, who would consider your technology an asset? Chad was a little sheepish with that hand, but it's an asset. Who would consider it a liability? What makes it a liability? Jack, why would you say it's a liability? I'll repeat the answer.
Age and scalability.
So age and scalability was the comment as to why it would be a liability.
That anybody can hack into your system if you don't have the right cybersecurity. Nobody thinks about that until it happens.
Yep, so lack of security makes it a liability, right? Data specifically now, just your data, not your overall technology, but just data. On a, on a scale of 1 to 10, who would say you're a 7 when it comes to like readiness for your data governance, your data structure is a 7 out of 10? Who would categorize your data that way? 6 out of 10? 5 out of 10?
Can I rephrase the question?
Yeah, please.
How many here would consider themselves to work for a data-driven organization? Good. Can you raise them a little bit higher so I can see the percentage? Okay, that's good.
2 more questions, then we'll transition to the panel. AI means 10 different things to 10 different people, right? And in many ways, AI can be a buzzword. So, who is being asked about AI from your C-suite? And if you're a CIO or CDO from other C-suite executives, who's being asked about AI? And of those who are being asked about AI, how many are being asked, is our data ready for AI? Are we ready for AI? So that's about half. So a lot of people are being asked about AI, but only about half of those people are being asked if we're ready for AI. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. Is it a tech? Is tech an asset, or is it a liability? So with that, I'll introduce the panel, and then introduce themselves, and we'll get started.
Hello everyone, I'm Mike Batdorf, CFO for Prelude Solutions, and at Prelude we help our clients optimize technology by helping them reduce their overall spend and evaluate upgrades to services that support their business objectives.
Hello, I'm Brendan McGuire. I'm a partner with Wipfli. Wipfli is an advisory and accounting firm. Top 20 advisory and accounting firm in the country. We have 43 offices across the country. I work in the Radnor office. We have an office in Philadelphia as well. So think of tax, accounting, and then I work within the Business Solutions group, which is essentially, we do outsourced CFO, outsourced controller, outsourced analytics team, managed services, ERP implementations, CRM implementations. I specifically work in data and analytics space. So I used to own a company called Waypoint Consulting. We merged into Wipfli a little over 3 years ago. I have about 25 years in data management and analytics, so that's my area of expertise.
John Manganiello, managing partner with Accelerate Partners. So we are very fortunate to be partners of Prelude Solutions as their technology and cybersecurity advisors. Our business partners come from a IT and cyber managed services background, so we partner with our clients to enable technology to have a positive impact on their business and making sure it's secure, and resilient. So we thank the Prelude team for having us.
Yeah, no, thank you. I want to start with Mike. So, part of Prelude's core business is we will audit, assess your tech stack and your internet, your telecom, things along those lines, and look for errors and things along those lines for cost savings. So, Mike, can you just talk a little bit about what we find when we work through our audit process?
Sure. Well, more often than not, what we find is that our clients don't really have a complete view of all the services that they're paying for, right? And that's why 62% of the savings that we find for clients come from unused services, right? So think about things like services that they had at locations they closed a couple of years ago, or duplicative forms of internet access at a certain location. It could be remnants of old technology upgrades, right, where they installed new services and didn't disconnect the old services. SaaS licenses from employees that haven't been with the organization for 2 or 3 years, you know? So each and every one of those services that they're buying, and what they're paying for those services, the terms that they order them under, those are all data points, right? And you know, if that data is being managed appropriately, then it's an asset. And if the data is unstructured or it's not even available, then it becomes a liability pretty quick.
Yep, and that's where we get to, is your data an asset or is it a liability, right? An analogy that we were making in preparation is your house a liability or is your house an asset? Liability or asset?
Asset.
Do you have a mortgage?
I do.
That's a liability, right? So it could be both, right? The mortgage and your future taxes are a liability. The equity in the home is an asset, right? So that's part of the conversation is how do we make that same thing an asset versus a liability? Right? Yeah, go ahead.
So I just want to kind of add to that. So again, coming from an accounting perspective, think about the traditional asset and liability. There are ways to make your data to monetize your data, to make it an asset, right? You can create IP, you can sell your data to a data marketplace, you can, even if you're in regulated industries like healthcare, you can de-identify data and sell it back to customers. So there's ways to monetize data, but I think the context we're talking about here is, how is it a strategic advantage? So an asset in the sense of, is it helping you make decisions? So I asked a question earlier around, do you consider yourself a data-driven organization? So I'll kind of define that for a second. So data-driven organization is someone that, or an organization that when there's a decision being made or somewhere within the workflow, there is information, data available to support that decision. And it's trusted, it's available, and it's consistent, right? Those are like the 3 core pillars of governance. But if you're a data-driven organization, then it's readily available at the point, at the workflow. This is why it's even more important going forward within AI. We're going to transition to that. But the difference between AI and the traditional data management analytics and forecasting and predictive is that in the future, it will become your workflow. It'll become your operating system. AI is going to be your operating system. So if the data that feeds that model is not accurate, not governed, you're setting yourself up for gigantic failure. And I was thinking about this weekend. I was trying to think of like a story that there's different parts of Wipfli, and trying to convey what we do to them is helpful. So I was walking on, people went down the beach this weekend. I was on the beach and I was thinking about what kind of story can I tell to people to kind of get this message across. And it was kind of windy this weekend, the water was kind of rough. And I was thinking, okay, what if I took a lifeguard boat and put it 100 yards offshore? And then I dropped a Frisbee on the beach. And I took a cannon, like a military cannon, and put it in the rowboat, in the lifeguard boat. And I said, hit the Frisbee. 2 things are probably gonna happen. You're probably gonna miss the Frisbee and you're probably gonna sink the boat. If you're planning on advancing in AI without investing in data governance and data strategy and data management, you're shooting a cannon at a rowboat, you're probably gonna sink. So I kind of like thought about that. I don't know if that resonates with anyone, but sorry, long-winded way of saying that governance is really important.
And then John, can you expand on that, because you have a couple examples from the field with both data and infrastructure readiness for AI.
Sure. I mean, it's interesting how we come full circle. We've heard all the terms around technical debt, being inhibited to, how the firm evolves. I would argue now it's table stakes to kind of evaluate the barriers to take advantage of data, generative AI, agentic AI. If you really think of it, everyone on this panel and everyone in the room, I think this is kind of a .com, for those who've been around .com, this is a new wave. This is historic. So we wake up every day going, well, how do we prepare? How do we take advantage of this? So the new generations coming and how they work is going to be night and day different. So we're really talking about, the theme of this is really to challenge the people to take a fresh look at how their technology and cybersecurity operating model. So we really start with the infrastructure, where the data is built on, and we can get into all different, looks at databases, lakes, warehouses, but think of it. I mean, when's the first time someone fired up ChatGPT? It couldn't have been more than a year ago plus, right? And everyone's first attempt at doing that, the minds were blown out of the outcome they got. I always joke, I'm not a wordsmith. I never was. So, I would reread my emails 40 times, but now I'm starting to use that. But some of the real live use cases we're seeing is, we're having a lot of talks with executive leadership and IT executives about this taking the world by storm, and we really start with the baseline infrastructure readiness. So let's get back to basics, right? There's different infrastructure strategies, where the infrastructure is hosted, but that has to be current. Cloud or whatever type of cloud platform you have, whether it's on-prem, colo, et cetera, it's about agility. So we have to start foundationally there and build that roadmap, make sure it's resilient, available, secure. But now the data now is, we're kind of full circle just of how we work with enterprise data management products, platforms, solutions, because now we can layer this generative AI on. So we get a lot of calls like, I want to fire up some type of LLM. I'm like, back to data governance, back to guardrails, an AI policy, accept the use of these technologies. So we're challenging our clients to really think, is the status quo good enough, and where this is going to be? As we know, we're just getting started in this world, so we're really excited about that.
Yep. And I want to ask Chad a question. So Chad Markafus is here. He's an SME with Talaris, which is a technology distributorship that our firm, John's firm, and others will source services to our clients. So I say this respectfully, of everyone in the room, Chad probably talks to the most diverse group of clients and end users. So do you want to just make a couple of comments in alignment or with what John and Brendan said, or maybe what you're seeing?
Yeah.
From clients?
So I just want to echo what John said is, I work with everybody on the panel, not a lot with you yet, but all of that to be said is one of the key things that we see time and time again, the Fortune 1000 space, 50% of their AI projects have failed to implement, failed to go to the next step. So we are at a point right now where within this industry, and what you're going to see and hear from today is several people that are, let's get back to the basics to just reiterate what John said. You have to look at the data. Garbage in, garbage out. So if you're expecting fantastic information to come from an LLM or an AI that's layered onto crap data, you're going to get a really bad experience and really bad information back out. And your customer is going to look at that and go, well, this isn't what I paid for, this isn't what I wanted. So the key is, again, back to the basics, look at the data sets, look at where things are at, and then from there, start to build a plan and get buy-in from your customer as well. Make sure that there's a team there that is supporting you, that is looking at this from an AI perspective of how it's going to better the company, and leverage that team to help push the project forward internally as well. Have them as your advocacy there. So those are some of the key things that we see on a daily basis in the conversations that we have out there across the country.
So kids, preparation. Chad literally stole my next question. We should have prepared better. But you did make a comment. So statistics will show, I'm going to go back to the audience for a minute. Statistics will show 50% of AI projects fail, right? Statistics will also tell you that 83% of statistics are made up. But half of AI projects fail. This directionally seems accurate, right? So just again, show of hands, how many people have successfully deployed AI in your environment? And then vary to the question, how many people are present tense, currently either deploying AI or working through kind of the pitfalls or the challenges from that first deployment of AI, right? So kind of some of the same hands, right? So what makes a deployment successful? And what makes a deployment not successful? Anyone want to make a comment or provide some feedback on that? I mean, we talked about governance, talked about guardrails, but what else makes a deployment successful? Jay?
I would say, leadership buy-in. You need top support, culturally, change management. So you can have the best technology in the world. Doesn't.
Yeah.
So I would say change management, leadership support, and around that is around communication. And what's our strategy? What does it look like? How are we going to get there? What are the major milestones? And I could go on and on and on.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say anything.
Yep. So for those behind Jenny, the spirit of it was, buy-in from the top, communication, and a firm strategy. And John, you talked about that all the time, right? It's not, AI is AI, right? But what's the outcome, right? What's the business outcome you want to get?
Yeah, I'll echo on Ginny. My mom's Ginny, so great name. On paper, it makes sense to have executive leadership buy-in. And we see it, so we get in a lot of the room with executive leaders, what are our peers doing, how we benchmark us. But I think it's that next layer. Not every organization has, you know, a certain size and scale, but I think it's really getting to know the day-to-day business operators, and we've been on some calls that, you know, wish lists, proof of values. And I'd challenge everyone here to, within your department, and if you lead a department, to sit down and go, what are things that are repeatable, what are taking too much time, and where can we bring operational efficiencies? I speak to operational alpha, it's a term I like to use. And this is where we have the democratization of the technology that's going on right now. Like the old days, what it took to, you know, rack servers, you know, spin them up, deploy them, you know, it was a different era. So the democratization of technology is truly historic right now. So what we're asking our businesses to do is sit down at the business level and start creating these tasks in this business unit and organize it. So then when you come to advisors like us, right, we have this task list. And where AI projects fail is we're trying to bite off more than we chew. So that's why we like the concept of proof of value. Let's get a win. So then we're kind of reverse engineering. What's the infrastructure look like? What is the cybersecurity tooling? Because cyber is always going to know rolling theme and make sure it's secure and governed. But let's get a win for one business unit, right? So that can be some orchestration. There's a difference between AI and automation, but that's what we're seeing now. So we can go get the hyperscalers, and there's partners here today you'll meet that are going to help you enable. So you're not alone. It's in, you know, when we speak with IT executives, saying this is we're technology overlay to you, an advisor. So it's okay not to have all the expertise. So now we're trying to find a balance of division of resources and labor. Do I have the in-house expertise, and where can I find the help? And then the good news is the suppliers on the other end are innovating. They're seeing so many different projects. So they've done some of these and they're seeing what's winning, what's not. And then they're holding the task, some of the providers like a Microsoft, to see where you're gonna, what's gonna be successful, what's early innings. So that's the thing I think to just, at the business level, is what are some of the outcomes they're looking, and organize it and just start small and get some wins and iterate.
Can I add to that? So again, I agree with what Jenny said as well. What's the one thing that everyone fears as it relates to AI? Losing jobs, replacing people, you know. So I have come full circle to really embrace the fact that this is just the next level of software, back to your point around the internet. And it's how we leverage it. And I think it goes back to what makes it successful. What's gonna rally the team around this implementation? Why are people gonna adopt it? Don't go to the board or whoever approves things and present a project that cuts costs. Present something that's gonna drive revenue, increase profitability. I know it sounds simple, but if you lean into those two things, you get more people and more management motivated to do it, change it. And I totally agree with what Jimmy said around change management. There's a lot of technical pieces, a lot of project management aspects to make these projects successful. But if you're just gonna focus on one thing, don't focus on cutting costs. Focus on driving revenue and profitability.
Any other comments or questions?
Hundreds of these projects, not underestimating the feedback mechanism. What I mean by that is, first time around on any AI model or project, you're not gonna get to the 96% accuracy or predictive rate. You're always gonna have to rely on the feedback loop to be able to build and test the model accordingly. I think a lot of people underestimate that, and I think that would be the number one thing I would.
Yep, spirit. So Robbie's on one of the panels after this. Spirit of what he was saying is the feedback loop, right? First go around, first deployment, you're never going to be 100%, 95%, whatever. So don't underestimate that. And you didn't say this, but also embrace it, right? Embrace that feedback loop. Recognize the Brett Favre picture that he showed Steve. When my brother's wife said to me, "That's the greatest life lesson I've ever heard," because when Favre threw the interception, Dawkins over the shoulder, or the 2 or 4, whatever it was. And I said, you know, moments of pressure don't change you. Moments of pressure accentuate who you are. And that moment of pressure accentuated Favre, because he's just a gunslinger, right? I think data structure in AI is the same thing, right? AI accentuates what your data is. If your data is at liability, it's accentuated. If it's an asset, that gets accentuated. So I think that's 100%. I have a question for Mike. Other comments about successful deployments or challenges in deployments? So I'm going to ask Mike Hamilton a question. Senior architect at Zoom is probably a fair title.
Close enough.
Right. So you raised your hand for both successful deployment and struggles. So do you want to comment on what made, and you've worked with some of the most name recognizable companies, that everyone here would know. Do you want to just a little bit about what makes them successful or not successful?
Yeah, and based on a few other comments around here, so yeah, I think that I work at Zoom, so I'm living AI. When your company's now dubbed the 2.0 journey, that it's AI first for everything. Even last week, our CEO during the investor call, he used his AI human avatar to give the presentation that started out before he then drifted. Top down from a leadership perspective on sponsoring projects that we work with. But some of the coolest companies that we work with, major motion picture company comes to mind. Bottom up in terms of project sponsorship. They go to the IT department, they view themselves as a service department when it comes to AI projects. And they start with interviewing them around what repetitive tasks are they going to be automated, how much time would then be saved. And they actually start with an ROI model using Microsoft Power BI. So they can already start with the end in mind of how am I going to justify ROI of everybody in the company asking us for projects. How do we go ahead and implement this? Which ones are going to have the biggest payoff throughout the department? And the employees themselves, who are often looked at as being the ones that are most fearful about AI and taking their jobs or hallucinations or things that are going to steer them wrong, are the ones that they're embracing to pull them in to then help justify the ROI and the project itself, so they can take their next level of projects to the executive team and have them sponsored, and then do it responsibly. And everyone will make mistakes. It's all about fine tuning. I know the market's going to tell you about training models, but it's way more about fine tuning models than it is training.
And that's a compliment to what Ginny said, because you're speaking bottoms up, Ginny's top down, right? That's how you get to the middle. And I forget exactly what you just said, but that's in alignment with what Steve talked about, which is you're going to make mistakes, right? You're going to screw up. Right? One of the things that we talk about is there's nothing we can't unscrew if you screw it up, but we have to get that feedback loop that Rob was talking about. Other than the sponsors, I would say 95% of us are within a 45-minute drive of this facility. Do you want to, Brendan, just mention?
Oh, yeah, sure.
DIN?
Yep. So we have a group called the Data Innovators Network. It's Philadelphia regional thing. It's really just a series of executives who get together twice a year, talk about anything and all things data. The last one was we workshopped around ideation with AI and then presenting for approval, from a board approval. So we had some pretty senior people that are angel investors and whatnot. They kind of helped the folks in the room. So if you're a CIO,
won that contest, by the way.
and you know what? I dropped the ball. I was supposed to have the bottle of wine for people, I didn't have it, so I dropped the ball. But yeah, it's a great event. If you're interested in it, we do it every 6 months. It's really just a think tank of local folks who are involved in data. So again, I'm not an AI expert. I work on the data side. Data is going to feed the AI piece. I don't know if there's anyone in the world right now that's a true AI expert, to be frank with you. I think it's like we're in the early stages of this thing, and we're all learning. But here's one thing we all know: it's not going to get any dumber, right? It's only going to get more advanced every single day. Yeah. So if you want to join the DIN, come see me. Happy to get you on the invite list.
Yeah, and it's executives and it's practitioners. That's a really good group. It's peer. It's a peer group. It's very insightful. A couple more minutes, then we're going to break out for leave for the breakout sessions. John, do you want to just for a minute just talk about the value of a third-party advisor to help clients navigate, the process of what they can do internally, what they can do externally? How do you vet out, multiple suppliers that on the surface may look similar?
Sure. To give a little of my background, give you some context, and we've all come to this journey some way, but I used to sell IT and salary managed services. So a few years ago, Mike Dietz and our business partner said, well, we're starting, I've got this business, why don't you come in and just be a consultant advisor? And I'm like, well, what does that mean? And what I found is, I don't have to, in a sense, when you come in, you're still able to sell our X service. So we think there's a really disruption going on and a wave of what we're considered trusted advisors that can come in and align and work with our clients and align our interests with theirs and get into like the friendship circle. When I was a little nervous, well, what do IT executives think of me? It's like, I don't know everything. So what we find with even the IT executives saying, I'm struggling with certain things. And sometimes it's tough to say that. So our role is to continually evaluate the suppliers in the market across all the key pillars. IT infrastructure, big pillar. Cybersecurity, big pillar. Communications call center, big pillar. Advanced networking, IoT, and now AI is here. It's a tough road to navigate. Gartner book reports are great, you can read them, but we're actually sitting here and seeing how our clients are taking on these challenges we're talking about. And if we spend 10 to 15% of our week minimum, collaborating with our what we consider our go-to best-in-class suppliers that we know are performing, and constantly researching and looking for new ones. So we think this is a disruptive model, and our partnership with Prelude is just a proof in the pudding. So I think we're just getting started, and like I said, I think the theme is the challenge that you're doing the fundamentals right, revisit them, and then raise your hand that you have strategic advisors to work with us. And then you have day jobs, so we're doing the R&D. You call up a project, and I gotta Google or talk to my peers, who's the 3 parties I should talk to. We've got that covered. You come to us and you can continue to do the day job. We're gonna get set up, we're gonna scope it right, we're gonna get on the same page, and we're gonna set up the first calls that are gonna be efficient, excuse the pun, accelerate the process, because it is an accelerate day, and get you to a quicker outcome and make confident buying decisions. That's the key part.
Okay, so we're gonna wrap up in a minute. Any questions, last comments? Jude?
Yeah, so we work at Work, so tech nonprofit. We have young adults here in attendance today.
I call them kids, but they are young.
Yes, young professionals. Just for our young professionals here, you guys obviously have a good idea of kind of what's coming with AI. Like, what wisdom would you impart on young adults that are here today who are looking to go into tech?
Cookworks, I'm sorry, Cookworks. I don't know how many students, but it's an internship. It's a 9-month self-paced internship, and then several